What's up, everybody? Gold Champ here. I want to do a more detailed beginner's guide to scrapping an air conditioner. So I'm going to do a quick walk around here, show the parts, and we'll put the camera down, tear it up, and show them how it's done. So the way I like to do it is pop off the lid. I'll get all of these screws around the top, because when you pop those off, this whole top will come off. You'll be able to get that motor out real easy. But before I do that, I'm going to take this little plastic covering off and pull the bolts out of the back side of it so the motor will fall free. I'll pop the lid off and cut that motor loose first. And then we're going to run down the sides of this guy, get each one of these bolts that go with this electric panel. A couple more bolts down here, or screws rather. And once that's loose, that's all the screws you're going to have to do other than pulling out the compressor. We'll cut the electric wires here and at the motor and at the compressor. We'll chop the copper off. Looks like there's actually going to be a little bit of number 1 copper on there. Most of it's going to be number 2. We'll cut those brass valves off right down there. We'll cut our ACR and we'll have it fully scrapped out. So let's go ahead and put the camera down and get at this. Alrighty. First thing I'm going to do is grab a screwdriver, pop that off the top, find the right size socket. Okay, so we got the socket that fits there. Well, those are even only finger tight. I can do it without a drill, really. But I need that screwdriver. Go ahead and pull this on over there so you can get a nice close look. So you can get those out. Motor falls loose. Piece of cake on that. Go ahead, pop that top off now. Screws and the screw bucket. Easy. Once again, not a whole lot to it. Get your dikes, your wire snips. Pop the top off. Give these wires a little snip. And we got our motor loose. Just like that. Easy peasy there. In our sheet iron pile. Well, this covering off of that compressor so we can get a better look at it. Now, let's go ahead and get up in there, another good look at it. So now we got our compressor. We got our wires cut loose. That was from the motor. Now we're gonna get our snips down in there. Couple quick snips on those guys. Now our electricity is loose. completely. We could rip the whole panel off. I'm going to go ahead and just snip these wires while I'm right here with the snips. These copper pipes bent out of the way. You see how that panel is completely loose. And some scrap yards are picky about those little steel terminals. Some are not. I clip it off. I find it less of a strain on my arms just to do these easy snips rather than grabbing and yanking. It is faster to just grab the whole harness of wires and just rip it off. But I don't really like doing that. It makes my arms hurt. So I give them a quick snip. 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 And just like that. Got number 2 wire. There are a couple wires in there that might pass as number 1, and that can be sorted out later. But for the most part, off of these residential air conditioners, other than the breakaway box, the electric box that goes into the wall at the house that it came from, other than those wires, the majority are going to be number 2. So this will go in our steel pile too. I've done another video on how to get the silver out of that if you are so inclined. I don't have time for that. It's all going to go out with sheet iron. A little more insulation. Get that out of my way. And we've got some pretty good long pieces of number 1 here. Let's see if I can get up close on that and show the difference. It's that soldering that really makes the difference. So if you can see, this is 2 pipes that have been soldered or sweated together. That little piece right there is going to be number 2 copper. You see this guy all the way to there is clean. So that's number 1. That little chunk right there, because of that soldering, is going to be number 2. And all this, all the way down to the next solder, is going to be number 1 again. Some people don't bother. They cut the whole thing off, throw it all in number 2, and that's fine. It's all a question of how much time you have and what's worth the effort to you and what's not. You see we got more soldering here. So that's all going to be number 2. But from there on, all the way to this piece of soldering, that's one clean copper pipe. So that's going to be number 1. I'm going to go ahead and chop that up real quickly with my handy dandy bolt cutters. Let's see if we can get an angle on that. There we go. It's going to go all the way down the length of that number 1 there. Like that. Another little snip to get that piece of soldering off. And 2 pieces of number 1 copper right there. Another piece of soldering here. Pop that right off. These 2 little tiny pieces are number 2. Right next to it. Okay. All the way down this length. That's all clean copper. That is going to be number 1. And just like that, we got some nice number 1 copper. Pop those off. Once again, we've got some soldering on these. Make them number 2. Now, let's get on to this next part. Pop a couple more screws out here. Anything holding that little steel plate here to the base, to the bottom, that's what I want off. And then these are holding this steel plate to the coil, to the ACR. We want those off too. There. Pretty simple once again. So that should be all the screws I need to get out, unless I missed one. Let's get up in here. We got these valves, and with the shadow there, it might be hard to tell, but they run through this iron plate. They're not actually connected to it, they're just jammed in there somewhat snugly. They can be banged out pretty easily once you get them cut loose. We're going to get upside down in here, get a good look at those. So that's the other side of it. Those copper pipes go straight into those brass valves. You'll cut it off right there, and you'll just knock it out. Those little, get my finger in there to show you what I'm talking about. Those right there, those are just little iron clips that kind of hold it in place. They're not welded on or anything like that. Very simple to get off. So we're going to go ahead, bang that loose a little bit, and then clip them off. I could clip them first, but it's kind of a hard angle to get in there and make that cut. So give that a little bump, get it out. Show you what I mean again. It's just that easy. So now pipe is cut loose. There's the back end of that brass valve. What I'm going to do is have to tap that with a hammer. Might even just be able to pull it out. Yeah, see, that was already so loose. So we've got that. You can see in the top, that's all brass. There's no iron in there. You can always throw a magnet on to double check it. But this should be yellow brass, which is good. I think red brass is the only grade higher that I'm aware of than yellow. So anyways, yellow brass, I get lots of that. It's a great item. Very dense. One bucket full. I mean, you're probably going to have 50, 60, 70 pounds depending on how heavy or how full you get it. So, got that one off. That brass is still stuck in there. Let's see if we can't just use the old bolt cutters and pop it off. Piece of cake. Sheet iron. Same with this guy. Look in the top there, there's no iron core or anything. So this is more yellow brass. Very simple. This is some trash. This is some plastic fencing along the outside. Most of the time that's iron, but not always. Stretch that out there where you might be able to see it. So that big blue piece there, that's iron. These coming off it are number 2 copper. Another quick snip. More sheet iron. Toss that in with the sheet iron. See how that's loose? The only thing holding this on now are these copper pipes. We'll give those a snip, and then all we got to do is cut the end off our ACR. We'll have a clean ACR. So, snip, 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 snip. Totally loose now. So we've got a dirty coil, dirty ACR now, because we've got these iron ends on, and we'll cut those off in just a minute. Set this out of my way. See how we're looking there. Got a good angle on that. So all that's left now is that iron base, the compressor or sealed units, what they're going to call it at the scrapyard, and a couple more number 2 iron pipes. Quick snip. Quick snip. All your number 2 is loose now. Put all that in the number 2 pile. Although it looks clean, it looks like number 1. I believe it's all the oil on the inside that contaminates it. That is why they grade it as number 2. I'm not positive, but they know. I used to think it was number 1, and I'd bring them mixed. And they would downgrade me, and I'd say, "What are you talking about? That's clean copper." And they'd say, "No, this came out of the inside of an air conditioner. That's number 2. I never understood why, but they could somehow tell. So, almost all of these are 1/2 inch, for at least for residential air conditioners. Again, very simple. Pop these. That's that. Make sure it's loose. Pick it up, toss it on out. So, this thing is completely finished, except for the final step of cutting this coil. I'm going to flatten this down just to save space. That is more sheet iron going in the sheet iron pile. Now, let's pop a battery onto our Sawzall here. Check this here, see if you can see that coil. Not really. Get that angle up there a little higher. So, we got our compressor taken out. That's completely finished. Some people like to cut these up and get the motor out of the inside. There's a good sized motor, and they like to pull the windings out. That's a little much for me. It, of course, can be done. I do not like to do that. It's a ton of work and a lot of oil and everything. It gets messy. I don't do that myself. But maybe I'll do one just to make a video for you guys one of these days. So, all that's left now to be completely done with this is cutting this coil. This iron plate here makes this a dirty ACR, or aluminum copper radiator. Cut this off, you've got a clean aluminum copper radiator. And depending on your scrapyard, the difference in price from dirty to clean is about 20 cents per pound. So it's a significant difference, in my opinion. Totally worth it because it doesn't take long at all. Quick cut. And the beauty of it, when you got that done, you have an ACR end. And these are worth considerably more than sheet iron. So you definitely separate those out as well. Okay, two ends. Set that on down. Put this with the rest of its dismembered body. And let's take a quick look here at the results. All the sheet iron's already been tossed in the sheet iron pile. We're looking at the good stuff here. First, we got our ACR ends. We got a couple pieces of yellow brass. Again, those are very dense. It doesn't look like much, but those add up very quickly. Love brass. This is going to be number 2 insulated wire. Again, some of it you could probably clean it up all the way, get number 1 for. It's been hit or miss with the scrapyard I go to, so it's just not worth the trouble for me. This is number 2 copper. Couple pieces of number 1 copper. It was very easy to cut those loose from the number 2. And again, you're going to get, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 cents more per pound for very little effort to upgrade it from number 2 to number 1. So totally worth it in my opinion. Electric fan motor and a sealed unit. And then we have, for me, the crown jewel, clean ACR. That's what I make most of my money off of. And you know, this is a 20-minute video because I'm going very slowly, trying to describe each step for new scrappers and beginners, people who might not know this stuff. I lost a lot of money in the beginning because I did not know how to separate this stuff properly until the scrapyard told me, hey man, you're leaving a lot on the table. So this is for the newbies. Nothing wrong with being new. You got to start sometime. And hopefully this is going to help you guys knock out some air conditioners and make some good money. And it can be done a lot faster than 20 minutes, which is what this video took, only because I'm taking my time and explaining it. That could have been done in less than 5 minutes easily. I can do them in about 2 or 3 minutes if they're a standard air conditioner like this. This was a very run-of-the-mill air conditioner. That one right there is pretty standard. Another one right there, pretty standard. get a decent amount of those. These ones are a little bit of a pain in the butt. This kind right here, it's hard to see. There's actually screws inside this iron bracket that if you want to get your brass valves out, you got to get every one of those screws off. It's a little bit of a pain. I mean, I still do it, of course, but it's not too bad. And speaking of run-of-the-mill, here's another one of the exact same one that I just broke down. Another quick look at it whole. So that is scrapping an air conditioner for beginners. Hope that you enjoyed, and I hope this helps you make some money.